Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope everybody's doing well on this beautiful Monday morning as the Stanley Cup playoffs have officially begun, and just a crazy weekend of sports where finally getting some good weather here in the New Brunswick area. And I can say I enjoyed none of it. I was pretty glued. My ass was glued to the couch cushion all weekend long, watching a plethora of sports that we're going to get into today. But I thought I'd start off the podcast just by thanking my mother. She bought me this shirt, and I wore it today because she asked me what I thought of it, just to get into a little personal life. And I said, it's okay. She didn't like that answer. I think she wanted me to be a little bit more enthused, excited. Yet she should know I don't get excited about things. But so I just thought I'd wear this shirt today. And if you're watching the video version, maybe let me know in the comments what you think of the shirt. If you think my mother's completely on base and it's a fantastic shirt, then let me know. I think it's got little Vans on it. So just thought I'd throw that in there. A little behind the curtain detail this weekend. I appreciate anytime I can get a new button up shirt. I wear them basically every day of my life. So it's nice to get a new one in the rotation. So anyway, thank you to my mother. But this weekend, just a sports weekend. We got some good weather, like I said, but for me, the Stanley Cup playoffs are a new chapter. And I've been tired of the NHL regular season for weeks now. And you've heard me on the pod. I've been sick of it. And what a refreshing weekend it was. I can say I watched 0 minutes of the Edmonton-Vancouver game Saturday. I can say I watched 0 minutes of the Calgary-Vancouver game yesterday. I did not miss a second of any of the games, any of the other four Stanley Cup playoff games this weekend. I probably won't be able to say that for every game. I'm going to try. I watch as many as I possibly can. With the NBA playoffs starting, baseball in full swing, we'll have a French Open in there, the PGA. It gets tight, but it was fantastic the way they scheduled the games. You had one bing, bang, boom right after the other. And 4 games, all decided by 1 goal. 3 go to overtime for the first time ever. And I'm going to go in order of the games, but I just want to start off talking about Tampa Bay, Florida last night. That was one of the best games I've ever watched in my life. I've watched a lot of hockey. I'm only 22, but I've been to a lot of rinks in my life. I've watched a lot of games on TV. I don't have much of a life. This is what I do. And that was a masterpiece. You hear a Picasso, my cousin Kurt's into art. That was my version of an art piece last night. First of all, I have to credit the players for bringing that in game 1, the hatred, the vitriol, just the pure passion for the game of hockey that we miss in a regular season. And you can't expect that every night of the regular season. But there's teams that just simply give you nothing in the regular season when it comes to passion and just some fervor. And I've mentioned that before. And again, everybody's cup of tea is not, physical hockey. But if you're a fan of the game of hockey, you enjoyed that game last night. If you watch hockey, you didn't enjoy that, you're not really a fan. You're watching it for the wrong reasons. Go watch basketball. I like basketball too, but there's no physical play like that. Last night was down and dirty. It was physical. And I get on officials a lot because I think it's a tough job, but it's your job. And there's a lot of bad ones. And I think they get coddled a lot with these stupid reviews, which I think they did get wrong in the first period with the Sam Bennett goal. But they called the game last night and let them play. There was, I think, 6 4-on-4s last night. That never happens. We see in games in the first period, they take one out of the pile. Think about it. 6 4-on-4s last night. I love that. They let them play the whole game into the third period. And it was refreshing because in the third period, Sam Bennett takes a terrible penalty. But they never took one of the pile. They could have stopped it early. But it was a refreshing game where it wasn't, okay, we're going to take one of you. They let it be chippy the whole night. And the Zebras deserve credit for that. And again, player safety and whatever, the hurt feelings Moon Miss crowd probably didn't love the game last night. But I couldn't stop watching. I was expecting it to go into overtime like everybody else. And then Mr. Clutch himself, number 21, Braden Point, just buries it past Sergei Bobrovsky. And we saw Tampa win the Cup last year. I predicted them on Friday to win this series. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think Florida should have won last night. I think that hurts Florida because they should have won that game last night. I think they were the better team. On discipline, 5-on-5, it really wasn't close. Florida was a much better team last night, just transition-wise. The way they protected the puck. I love their pursuit on pucks. I think they got some of Tampa's better players off their game when it comes to just being involved with the physical affair. But looking at the game as a whole, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, these guys are game breakers. The best players were the best players last night. You think of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think Victor Hedman was a little off base when it comes to his defensive play, but him on the power play as dynamic as ever. Nikita Kucherov hadn't played a game in 8 months, and yet he gets 3 points. Beautiful. I mean, the fourth goal for Tampa to tie it at 4 was pure brilliance. You got Hedman at the top. He passes Kucherov on the right hash, just about the top of the faceoff circle. Bobrovsky had already been beaten twice by Kucherov in that same position, so he overcompensates, slides too far to the right. Kucherov, beautiful pass to Point. Point's got a wide open net. We're tied at 4. There's not many players in the world that can make that play happen. You could say McDavid, Draisaitl, maybe Matthews and Marner, but it's very few. And a guy like Braden Point will never get the notoriety in the regular season, which is fine. It's the playoffs. This is where it matters. If it wasn't Victor Hedman last year, he's your Conn Smythe Trophy winner as playoff MVP. And what a start to this year's playoffs where he gets the tying goal. And with 1:14 left, Ryan McDonagh with a great block shot. But we see this from both teams. They both have great intelligence, these two teams. That's why they've been winning all year. They get a block shot. Point says, holy crap, I got an opportunity here. He breaks the zone. McDonagh, perfect pass, gets a breakaway, backhand, forehand, under the pad. Game over. And last night's game was just perfect. And credit to some of these players that really made it interesting. You know, a guy like Radko Gudas of the Florida Panthers, you'd hear nothing about him in the regular season game or what he does well. Really good defender. The physical plays he was making last night, the runs he took a big run at Patrick Maroon in the third period looking to line him up. He's a guy, I think the superstars, Jonathan Huberdeau, Alexander Barkov were brilliant last night. Huberdeau, that no-look pass, you know, he gets the puck, he takes it to the net. He gets Jan Ruda and Victor Hedman, who made a terrible play, really stuck in no man's land on the play. Huberdeau throws it behind his back, no-look pass to Owen Tippett, who puts it in the open net to make it 4-3. But last night it had everything. I think goaltending was not great. I think Vasilevsky was really shaky. He'd been shaky coming into the playoffs. Bobrovsky obviously wasn't perfect. Lets in 5 goals. But for Florida, it hurts because you should have won the game. Should have. 5-on-5, it wasn't even close. So in a sense, you can say, well, we should win the next game because 5-on-5, we're the better team. However, you don't expect Tampa to come back that lackluster 5-on-5. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions. They got a ton of pride, and they're a fantastic hockey club. And you're looking at Florida saying, if we were just a little bit more disciplined, we win. Tampa had 3 power play goals last night, and Kucherov, who hadn't played in 8 months, the guy still got a shot. And he dynamic. Just Tampa's power play. It's not fair because you have Victor. We see a lot of power plays this year that struggle. Like the Toronto Maple Leafs power play should be a lot better than it is. But why isn't it better? I'll tell you why. It's because you don't have a threat at the point. Victor Hedman, does he have state-of-the-art shot? No, but he's got a good one, and his wrister is one of the best in the NHL from up there because he got 9 goals last year in the playoffs as a defenseman. 9. And you see them, they cheat to him and at least Kucherov open. Or Kucherov gets a couple in the game. They're like, we're not going to get fooled again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. They overcompensate, and then Braden Poit's wide open. You have a threat at the top of the circle. Your power play is so much more dangerous. And a team like a Toronto, who should have a better power play, isn't, because they don't have that threat. The Winnipeg Jets, the same thing. The month of April, they go 2 for 29 in the power play. Why? Because Morrissey, Morgan Riley, these guys aren't threats. They don't have a big shot. Their wristers is the most effective shot, and even that's, who gives a fuck? It's not going through. So it's what makes a difference. I think Florida has something similar where Keith Yandle's got a bullet. He can crank it back there, and it makes your power play that much more dangerous, that much more able to capitalize on scoring chances. But for Florida, special teams, you got to be better. You can't allow 3 power play goals, but you can't take that many stupid penalties. Sam Bennett's penalty in the third period was terrible. Yeah, you don't like the hit. Barkov got hit pretty good in center ice by Blake Coleman, who was running around last night like a chicken with his head cut off. Loved it. But then Bennett didn't like that, okay? I wouldn't like it. Your captain's shaking up a little bit. But you hit a guy in the numbers from behind. To me, I see some – we talk about the Tom Wilson suspensions and all this crap. Bennett hit him in the numbers. He didn't have the puck. I think that could have been much worse. I doubt it'll be looked at, but to me, that was as dirty as any other hit because he's defenseless. He didn't turn. He's facing it the whole time, and Bennett just throws him into the glass. So, Bennett got a tough break in the first period where the goal should have counted, but you got all the video review, and video review is so effective. It makes everything so clear and not complicated at all. So let's do more of it, but nevertheless. But he takes a terrible penalty. And I think we saw some terrible penalties in this game by both teams. Early, we mentioned Blake Coleman. He scores a shorthanded goal. He takes a few stupid penalties. See Kucherov, in the first 4 minutes, first game back, he's in the box. He's in one of those 4-on-4s. We see Barkov get involved. He takes a penalty. He's off on the 4-on-4. Barkov, again, I mentioned off the top. This guy, he doesn't get the notoriety because he doesn't play in Canada, because he plays in Florida. It's a small market, what have you, yada, yada, yada. He was a man amongst boys last night as the Florida Panthers forward. He's just a moose out there. I mean, that play he made to Verhaeghe, where you look behind him, Verhaeghe sprawling, beautiful play. His goal, again, the guy is, for his size, the way he can move and how creative he is, he's unstoppable. And if Florida is going to win the series, couple things. Stay out of the box, because Tampa's going to score in the power play because they got too many damn good players. Stay disciplined. Stay physical. You need to be physical, but be disciplined. A lot of them are just stupid penalties. But their physicality was working because it was creating turnovers, creating opportunities for Florida to capitalize. And they need to continue to do that because it's going to wear on the Tampa defenseman. You want Sergachev to be pissed off. He had a rough night last night because he was getting too focused on being, throwing guys in the scrums and not worrying about being sound defensively or jumping into the play. So keep doing that and get some offense from bottom line guys. Bennett, Hornquist continue to chip in. Verhaeghe gets a goal last night. Owen Tippett gets first career playoff goal. And they need goalie Bob to be better. He doesn't have a great playoff career. Didn't start off great last night. It's not going to get easier because you're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning, defending Stanley Cup champions. You need to win game 2. You can't go down 2-0 back to Tampa. I realize it's limited crowd, but I even threw the sound on for a bit of the game last night because, I had people texting me saying the atmosphere, and obviously I don't listen to the sound 99.9% of games. I did for part of that third period just because it was cool, to hear those almost 10,000 fans, I believe, in that arena. It was a cool sight. It's been a long trek for COVID, for us to get to this point, to have fans back in buildings. It's an exciting thing for me. I know I want to go to a game here soon. If I didn't have to quarantine in Canada, I probably would be going. But nevertheless, we'll be watching on TV and enjoying every second of it. I was going to go to the Florida game last, but it was just too good that I had to lead the podcast with it because it was just a special game for me. And kudos to Tampa and Florida for giving what an effort. Obviously heartbreaking for Florida, but I love the hatred. You get guys like Ryan Lomberg. He guy's a fourth line winger, but the little guy was a man possessed last night. Matthew Joseph. I mean, these guys, they care. And it's clearly a hatred that is passion filled. And as a hockey fan and as a guy who likes physical combat in a combat sport, I know it's hard to believe that you enjoy watching hits in a sport that allows hitting, and that's kind of foreign to people in Canada. But I enjoy that. So we'll pivot into Boston at Washington. And this is the first game of the Stanley Cup playoffs, Saturday night, standalone game. And it has so many storylines. You got Alex Ovechkin in the final year of his contract. You have David Krejci, Patrice Bergeron, not spring chickens, number 1 and number 2 center for Boston. How do they work? And obviously you have the elephant in the room. You have Zdeno Chara, the former captain of the Boston Bruins, the leader, one of the best defensemen to ever play the game of hockey, is told, yeah, you can come back to Boston, but as a 7th defenseman. And he basically says, screw you, I'm going to Washington. I'm chasing another ring. And they both battle through the regular seasons, and they go through controversy with Tom Wilson hitting Brandon Carlo and a multitude of other things. And they end up playing each other here in the first round of the playoffs. And it's such a good series because I think both teams are desperate as hell for the same reason. Tick, tock, tick, tock. They know their window is closing. The ability to win a cup for these two teams is this year, maybe next year. But that's it, because your stars are getting older. Alex Ovechkin's 36. David Krejci is 34, 35. Patrice Bergeron's not getting any younger, a little long in the tooth. Didn't play great in game 1. Chara's 44, likely his last season. Who knows? Maybe he'll come back. But it's now or never. And you could say the same thing for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The teams in this division, who's ever going to come out of this division, they are all desperate because they know we do not have many kicks at the can left. So this game obviously it starts off the way you'd expect, a physical affair. Alex Ovechkin in his first shift just blows up David Krejci. David Krejci gets blown up twice in one shift. Brendan Dillon throwing him around. And really good defensive play start the game, one by Charlie McAvoy, the other by Dmitry Orlov breaking off 2-on-1s. But McAvoy in his next shift gets caught a bit. He breaks his stick. They go into 2-on-1 the other way, where McAvoy is basically just a stick figure where he can't do anything because he doesn't have a stick. Oshie finds Tom Wilson. He goes over the glove of Rask and scores the first goal of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I revel in this because who scores the first goal of the Stanley Cup playoffs? Tom Wilson, of course. I mean, the guy everybody hates, and the hypocrites that say that they would not want Tom Wilson on their team. Yeah, I don't want to hear their hockey takes because clearly they're idiots. But the guy had a pretty good game. We'll get into him and what he does later. But he scores the first goal. The Oshie Wilson Sprong line really was driving the bus in this game, and was impressive the whole way. And then we see in late in the first period, Jake DeBrusk scores off a set play off the face-off. Big goal for him. He's on the fourth line to start the playoffs. So it tells you what Bruce Cassidy thinks of him. So he's on the fourth line, gets a big goal, ties the game. But on this play, Vitek Vanacek pulls his groin. It was clear they meant Gary Galley, I believe, mentioned it on the telecast, and he has to leave the game. But yet, normally it's Ilya Samsonov, who's the backup goaltender, sometimes the starter. He's on the COVID list again because him and Evgeny Kuznetsov either got COVID or were having a couple drinks when you're not supposed to. These COVID rules. Anyway, Washington is caught with that, so he's not available. The backup goaltender is 39-year-old Craig Anderson, formerly well known for his time in Ottawa, where he was starting goalie, where they went to the Eastern Conference Final. Great story was his wife battled cancer, and he's just a good guy in the game of hockey. However, he's played 3 games all season and played some at the AHL level, but he's been on the taxi squad, really not ready to come in, but he's forced to. And to his credit, he played really well. He was just solid the whole night. I think Washington did a really good job of defending. Boston didn't do a good enough job getting pucks to the net. You see a goalie who's 39, who hasn't played all year, throw the puck at the net, get some bodies in front. And Boston did not do that the whole game. And that was the most frustrating thing for me. You got a goalie who's barely played. You throw everything. That's hockey 101. I don't care if you're playing rec. If you see a guy who's cold, the first thing you do is you throw the puck from the corner, you get pucks on net. Create some turnovers. He's going to bounce some out because guess what? He's not ready. Cause havoc. Boston didn't do that. First 5 minutes in the game, they hardly got a shot on him. It wasn't that Washington was really carrying the plays. Boston was kind of sleepwalking through it. Boston, we see Boston and Washington both are really good forechecking teams. I think that's one thing that you can really say about them. And then we see Washington does take the lead. Brendan Dillon gets a shot from the point. Ovechkin's battling in front. Hit Jeremy Lauzon's stick. Bounces over Rask. 2-1 Washington. For the end of the period, Nick Ritchie ties the game on the power play. And the first 2 periods were really physical affairs, kind of tight hockey. And that brought us to the third period where it really opened up. And it was, wide open hockey, both good saves from Anderson and Rask. Both teams not giving each other, trying to limit each other's chances, but not a lot of whistles. And the biggest takeaway, just how evenly matched these 2 teams are. Both their stars didn't have great games. I didn't think Ovechkin played very well. I didn't think Bergeron was very effective. Marchand, Pasternak for that matter. Backstrom really wasn't that effective. John Carlson had a bad game for the Washington Capitals. But they get to overtime. First of 3 straight overtime games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we see TJ Oshie, we see Wilson go to Lauzon, kind of gets stuck in a bad position. He gets stuck with a bad play in his own zone. Puck goes the other way. Wilson finds Oshie. Oshie gets a shot on net that's actually tipped by Nick Dowd. Hits Price in the chest, then hits his pad, rolls under him, and that's the ball game. Nick Dowd scores the overtime winner for the Washington Capitals. And it's going to be a theme in the next couple of games, but depth scoring, it's pivotal. Washington, it wasn't Ovechkin, it wasn't Backstrom. It was Nick Dowd, Tom Wilson, who you could say is one of their top players. I'll give you that one. Brendan Dillon, who's a defensive defenseman. They scored the goals. Nick. This is how you win. When Washington went on the run, Lars Eller, Devontae Smith-Pelly, Chandler Stevenson, they had big playoffs. And you need that. You need that depth scoring to compensate for when your stars aren't having it on a particular night. And Washington didn't, but yet they still come out with a win. That's huge. For Boston, I think it was a really even game. Vanacek is unlikely to play tonight in game 2. Samsonov's off the COVID list, but again, unlikely to play tonight with limited play lately. They want him to practice, get some work in. So Craig Anderson is likely to start tonight, which is a scary thought. He did get the win in game 1. He'll be he's going to play he's likely to play. So we'll see. Kuznetsov will return this series. So who knows what's going to transpire there. But for Boston, their stars got to be better. They got to throw pucks at the net, get bodies in front. We didn't see that enough in game one. And you got to respect the goal. But it's 39-year-old Craig Anderson. It's not Carey Price in front of you. I think they were too cute the other night. But the one thing you can look at is our stars weren't that good and we nearly won. And you got to expect better efforts from their best players. Obviously, I think Ovechkin will have a better game too. He's really good physically. But when it comes to scoring opportunities, he was a little quiet. But another great game that goes to overtime. Washington takes it 3-2. And obviously, we'll see game 2 tonight from Washington at the Capital One Arena. So that'll be game 1. That'll be game 2 tonight. Second game of the day yesterday. Islanders, Pittsburgh. And where's the first game? First game yesterday, I did Florida first. Sorry. Saturday was Washington, Pittsburgh. There's Washington and Boston. We get Islanders, Pittsburgh yesterday. Start the game. No Evgeny Malkin for Pittsburgh. Didn't take the warm up. He missed 23 of the final 24 games. He's been dinged up. No Semyon Varlamov, the starting goalie for the Islanders. He's got an undisclosed injury. That was a big one for me. For the I said, Ilya Sorokin's our backup goalie. He has played pro for a long time in Russia, but against his first career playoff game, probably some nerves, but he was solid. We see a lot in this game. It's Mike Sullivan versus Barry Trotts, and it's cat and mouse game where Pittsburgh has the last change, but we see Barry Trotts try to get matchups. Sidney Crosby's line. And I think Crosby played one of his best games I've seen him play in a very long time. He was all over the puck yesterday. He was ferocious. He scores a goal, which I'll get into, but I just think Crosby did everything he could possibly do to help this team win. And he was all over the puck. I think Brian Rust had a solid game. We'll see that, but it was a game where that Crosby line was really driving the bus for Pittsburgh, and he was ferocious on the forecheck. But you could see Barry Trotz is comfortable with a couple different offensive pairings going up against Crosby. That would be the Martin line with Martin, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck. He's comfortable there. And I also think he's comfortable with the Pajot Palmieri line. He does not want the Barzal, Komarov, Everly line up against Crosby. They got exposed a few times against them. So Barry Trotz was trying to avoid that matchup while Mike Sullivan was trying to get Crosby out against them. So it was cool to see two really good head coaches who potentially could be coaching at the Olympics for their respective countries in a couple months battle it out when it comes to last change and getting a little head-to-head advantage when it comes to scoring opportunities. But Pittsburgh's dominating the game early. They have complete control, but of course it's hockey. So right off a TV timeout, Pajot passes the puck off the boards in his own zone to Kyle Palmieri. He basically just comes in over the blue line, top of the circle. Doesn't look like a real dangerous opportunity, but he beats Jarry over the glove, and it first of 4 really bad goals. I think you can look at yesterday's game for Pittsburgh, and they ultimately lose it. And I look at Tristan Jarry saying, what the hell were you doing? You should have saved every goal you let in. And this was the first bad one. This Palmieri beats him, opens the scoring for the Islanders. Not long after, we see Pittsburgh got scoring from 3 different lines, but I think their 2 best were obviously the Crosby line was the best. Then we get this Goodrow line with Evan Rodriguez that was really playing well, and they hem in the Islanders shortly after the goal. Scott Mayfield had a rough day. Goodrow gets a shot blocked, gets his own rebound, beats Sorokin over the shoulder. It's 1-1. And the Islanders were chasing the game the first period, point blank. And then we see shortly second period, Pittsburgh continues to dominate the play. And then Brian Dumoulin gets a shot from the point. Crosby's in front, battling for position. gets his stick out, beautiful hand-eye coordination, goes through the legs of Sorokin. 2-1 Pittsburgh. And I thought this was going to be the turning point of the game. Pittsburgh gets a double minor for high sticking. The Islanders get a 4-minute opportunity on the power play. Fail to score. Don't get that many good opportunities. I thought it wiped away a lot of the momentum. And I said to myself going into the third, that was their chance. Pittsburgh was playing a lot better. And I said, well, Pittsburgh's just going to take this one. Pittsburgh will get the win. And that'll be it. But to their credit, the Islanders went into that second intermission, didn't put their heads down. They came out playing in the third period. 3:33 into the third. Another goal that Jari's got to look at. John Gabriel Pajos from the top of the left face-off circle beats Jari over the shoulder. No tip, no nothing. This is a direct look, and it's another bad goal where, good shot, but it's the playoffs. You have to make this save. He lets in a bad one. We're tied at 2. Then we go into late in the game. It's about 4 minutes left. And Brock Nelson feeds Anthony Beauvillier. Beautiful chance for a tap-in. He fans on it. They don't score. Puck goes the other way. Brian Rust, who was having a great game, makes a bad decision. He turns the puck over, does not get the puck deep. Play goes the other way. Beauvillier is still down there. He drops the puck to Nelson. Nelson gets the puck, goes through Tristan Jarry, right under his arm, basically through his body. And it's 3-2 Islanders. And again, it's no tip, no nothing. It's just another bad goal, and Islanders have the lead. Kapanen ties the game 31 seconds later. See a beautiful curl and drag. So the Jeff Carter line strikes. 3 different Pittsburgh lines have scored at this point. But looking at it, for moving on, it's the longest overtime out of the 3 games. It goes almost 17 minutes, but Pittsburgh's got really some good opportunities. Islanders are trying to keep the opportunities to the outside. We do see a long shift where Matt Martin, Clutterbuck, Cizikas get caught on the ice. They ice the puck. The Crosby line gets some good opportunities, but Sorokin eventually freezes the puck. I think this was Pittsburgh's really good chance to get to the bench a little frustrated. Right off that draw, the Pajot line's now on the ice. They get the puck deep. You see Pajot's deep. He's deep with Palmieri. Palmieri feeds the puck from Pajot, and Jari's leaning up against his post and leaves the top corner a little open, and Jari beats him. Palmieri beats him top shelf. His second of the game, and Uncle Kyle Palmieri gets a second of the postseason, an OT winner, and the Islanders take the first game on the road. And that's 2 road wins to this point of the 3 games we've talked about, and one for Pittsburgh saying, Pittsburgh was the better team yesterday, but Jari was not good enough. And, Sorokin's only played 1 game, but Varlamov should be back in this series. He's won playoff series. Jari hasn't. And Pittsburgh's another team that's desperate. They know Crosby, Malkin, this nucleus is not going to be together forever. Malkin, Letang each have 1 year left on their deal. And Malkin has an injury-plagued season. I don't think he's been as good of a player in a long period of time. Where does that go? And it's game 1, game 2 tomorrow. I pick Pittsburgh to win the series. I'm not going to back off that after 1 game. But the play of Tristan Jarry worries me. Can he turn it around? Can he be a competent starting goalie in the playoffs? You don't have Matt Murray behind him. You do not have Marc-Andre Fleury like you have in the past. You have Casey DeSmith. And no offense to Casey DeSmith, but he's not a starting goaltender either. So for Pittsburgh, I don't think their defensive play was that bad. I think every goal was poor. So if Jarry can just be a competent guy, then Pittsburgh should have a good chance of winning game 2. But credit to the Islanders. Again, this team was terrible coming into the playoffs. Couldn't score goals. But you get this, Jean Gabriel Pajot, who they acquired from Ottawa, who was been a great playoff performer. Has 3 points yesterday. Kyle Palmieri, deadline acquisition, gets 2 goals. And maybe Kyle Palmieri doesn't score another goal the entire playoffs, but he was good enough yesterday. You don't win game 1 without Kyle Palmieri. He scores the first goal of the game, scores the game winner. It was worth it for at least 1 victory. If you look at it that way, Kyle Palmieri's addition was at least worth one playoff victory. And to look at a deadline acquisition, that's pretty good. But you know the Islanders, they're stingy. They don't like to give you much, and they'll impressive for them to take game one. And I think it's terrible for Pittsburgh. I was talking to myself and Dirk, because that's who I talked to in here, that it was more important for Pittsburgh to win yesterday than the Islanders. And because, number one, the Islanders have won the past couple of seasons. They know how to battle back. Pittsburgh got swept by the Islanders 2 years ago. They lost to Montreal last year. They're coming off two series where they were favored to win and lost. And you do not want to have a negative attitude. And they've played really porous in the playoffs lately, and they need some kind of confidence boost. So I think it would have been more beneficial to see Pittsburgh win yesterday than Long Island. But interesting to see tomorrow night how Pittsburgh responds to a loss. And I think you need to see more from the Carter line. They scored late, Capita did. But if Malkin returns, if you can get some more dynamic opportunities, I think Chris Letang was quiet yesterday. So we'll see what Pittsburgh brings to the table in game two. But another overtime game that was nearly a double overtime game until Uncle Kyle Palmieri put it to rest. That brought the last game we'll talk about, because there only been four. It was Minnesota at Vegas. And this was the series I was probably the most excited about. Me and Casey talked about it on Friday. And this season series was great. Obviously, Vegas, you might not have watched because they're on late, but they've been great all year. Minnesota, one of the surprise teams in the NHL, led by Coach Dean Evison, who, since taking over for Brucey Boudreau, has really turned this franchise around. Bill Guerin has built a solid team where Kirill Kaprizov's come over. Joel Eriksson, who was really a fourth liner last year, is now scored 19 goals in regular season. We see Victor Rask find his game. Nico Sturm, a youngster, has stepped into the lineup and made a difference. Their defense core is more well-rounded with Spurgeon and Suter and Dumba. And you don't see Suter playing 30 minutes a night, and it's been beneficial to the whole team. Cam Talbot, a free agent signing, it's been really good. Kaapo Kähkönen. So we head into this series where Vegas is the favorite for sure, but Minnesota's no slouch. And I said I think Minnesota would give Vegas a harder time than they would Colorado. Just like I think St. Louis will give Colorado more of a hard time than they would Vegas, just stylistically and the way they play. And we see it's a heavy game. In Minnesota, their really big strength is the way they defend. They keep pucks to the outside. And Vegas was the better team yesterday for sure. But Minnesota, they allowed 42 shots. But if you watch the game, how many high-scoring opportunities did Vegas really get? 4 or 5 out of 42 shots. They were limited opportunities. And they just kept the puck to the outside. They kept them out of the high-danger opportunities. And if you think of it, it was a 0-0 game the whole game. Minnesota had better scoring chances. If you think of the game, you think of Fiala getting robbed, Hartman getting stoned twice by Marc-Andre Fleury. You think of Kaprizov getting robbed where you thought he had an empty net. You don't think of Cam Talbot saves. Minnesota had fewer shots, but more high-danger scoring opportunities. And we go through the whole game. Good physical affair. Just like we have all weekend, but it's tie game, and nobody can break through. No Pacioretty for Vegas, where he's dealing with undisclosed injury. That's a big loss. He's been their top goal scorer this year. They clearly missed him yesterday. No Zach Parise from Minnesota. We get into overtime, and Vegas kills a penalty. So you think, okay, they're gonna get some momentum, but before they can do that, they got this gritty line that I love of Marcus Foligno, Jordan Greenway, and Joel Eriksson. And if you don't, Marcus Foligno is less talented than his brother, but he's mean, he's big, and he's a good defensive forward, and he can also throw the gloves around. But Petrangelo's got the puck, he can't clear it. Foligno's hard on him. That turns the puck over to Greenway. He's got the puck down low. He is going behind the net, he throws the puck out front to Joel Eriksson. Eriksson has a look at the net. He's going to fire. Martinez goes to block it, hits off the inside of his leg, beats Fleury, goes to Fleury's legs, changes direction. Minnesota takes game one on the road, 1-0. And this is a picture-perfect game for Minnesota. They have Kaprizov as a brand name goal scorer. They don't have that many. Eriksson Ek had a great season scoring goals. And he did it again today but Vegas did what they had to do. And I think you couldn't ask for a better game from Vegas, where Vegas had good opportunities, but Minnesota erased what they did well. And they erased the middle of the ice, and they didn't give them the high scoring opportunities that they normally get. And they had power play opportunities. I think they missed Pacioretty a ton. And they need to see more from Marchessault. They need to see more from Riley Smith. These guys need to produce more if they're going to win. And Minnesota proved a lot in game one to me that, first of all, they can hang with them. I thought they could for sure, but that they're a threat to upset them. And as much as Vegas and Colorado have been talked about all year, these two teams are going to meet in the second round, which I still think they will. St. Louis, Minnesota are not going to make this easy. And Ryan O'Reilly said after the final regular season game, I wouldn't bet against us. He used to play for Colorado. They did not have a great separation, a poor divorce, so to speak. And I'm sure he wants to go out there and kick their ass. And vice versa for Minnesota. Alex Tuch, Minnesota gave up on Alex Tuch. So I'm sure he wants to beat them. But you have guys that are just cast-offs. I look at Minnesota's kind of like Florida, where they have players that just didn't work out somewhere else, and they've pieced it together. So 3 of the 4 Stanley Cup playoff games so far, the road team has won. And the team who wins the first game one of a playoff series wins about over 70% of the time. So could we see some upsets? Could we see the Islanders, potentially Minnesota, Tampa Bay, all these road teams winning? Washington's the only home team to win early. Game 2 of Washington and Boston tonight. We got game 1, Hurricanes, Predators tonight. The Hurricanes head into start their playoffs. Obviously, they finished first in the Central. One of the most impressive teams this whole season. They never dropped off. Nearly won the President's Trophy. Nashville had a great second half where they didn't sell at the deadline. They added a few depth pieces, and they got into the playoffs, to their credit. And they're a stingy bunch, to say the least. Then you got also tonight Colorado, St. Louis, where, as I mentioned before, Ryan O'Reilly playing his former team. Got Colorado, where last year you can make a good argument that they should have made it to the Stanley Cup final. But they had goaltending issues, they had injuries, and Dallas upset them. Now they got Grubauer back. They're fully healthy. They got all their guys off the COVID list. Can they run the table here? Can they make it all the way to the final? I think, looking at Colorado, they have all the tools to do it. They can play a physical game. They can score at will. They got the defense core. This is why they tanked. This is why they bottomed out, to have a roster that can do this. And we'll just see if they can piece it together. So that starts tonight. When it comes to the Canadian division, Winnipeg, Edmonton will be Wednesday night. That's at 10 o'clock. That'll be game 1. The reason that it's pushed back, if you don't know, is because you cannot start the playoffs for whatever reason until your division is done. So Vancouver and Calgary have to play Tuesday and Wednesday. And when those are done, then the Canadian division will start. So Winnipeg, Edmonton, game 1, Wednesday night. And then for everybody, Thursday, I believe it's at 8:30. So everybody have to stay up an extra half hour. Toronto and Montreal will open their series. So that'll be game 1 on Thursday. So Canadian division will start, but as you saw this weekend, if you haven't watched the across the border all year, it's been some damn good hockey down there, and a fantastic start to the Stanley Cup playoffs, where we've seen some really good players, some really good teams, and I thoroughly enjoyed the start to the playoffs. And for the next couple months, you can to the points where you want to be. You're going to break it all down, talk about the teams, talk about style of play, and just the great things that we see. So that's kind of the hockey breakdown today, and I loved it. So great start to the playoffs for everybody involved. And for the NHL, you don't wait for the Canadian division, you get it going. And I don't think you could have asked for a better weekend when it comes to action and just notoriety. Over the weekend, we also saw Saturday night. I was watching Washington Boston, and then I'm like, well, game's over. What else am I going to throw on? And then I ordered the UFC 262 pay-per-view, and a lot of interesting things. You see a broken arm in the undercard, a couple big knockouts. And that brings us to our two big fights of the night, both in the lightweight division, where we got Beneil Dariush fighting Tony Ferguson in the co-main event, where Tony Ferguson was once one of the best lightweights in the world. He is one of the most raw fighters in the history of the UFC, where he was in a position to have a title opportunity to be a champion for such a long time, but you had fights with Khabib get broken up. Sometimes Tony was at fault because he's had some personal issues, but Khabib had to check out for other reasons. And we've had fighters come out with injuries, and he's been pushed out of fights. But at one point, he had won 12 fights in a row and was just dominant. But then he stepped in the ring with Justin Gaethje, and he got the hell beat out of him. It was really a fight for Tony and Justin, where the winner would fight Khabib for the lightweight title. And Khabib put a beating on Tony, and the ref had to stop the fight in the fifth round, where it was all Justin, and Gaethje beats Tony Ferguson, and Ferguson was really knocked out of an opportunity to fight for the title. So he finally gets a loss after 12 in a row, but he says, you know what, I'll fight Charles Oliveira. I can rebound here. If I fight Charles, I'll be in line for the next title shot, which was true. He fights Charles. It was another fight that was all Oliveira. Tony was just physically manhandled the entire fight, where Oliveira had him on the ground, got some good shots, but Tony was in no position to ever win the fight. And Oliveira had won his 8th straight fight. We'll talk about him in a minute, but it was a no contest where Tony loses 2 in a row. Both fights were bad, and he comes into this fight with Beneil Dariush looking for redemption, looking for vindication that he is still an elite contender in the lightweight division. And it didn't go well. Dariush gets the win via decision. He popped Tony's knee in the middle of the second round with a submission that would make most men tap out, but Tony's ability to withstand pain is second to none. And Dariush even commented on that after the fight, but Tony never had an opportunity to win. At one point, he looked like he maybe could lock in a submission. Dariush just used his power, used his strength to fight out of it. And Tony's 37. That's 50. That's 65 in the fight game. And Tony's been through a ton in his career. And to me, it just looks like he's done. I would not be surprised if Dana White says to him, you know what, Tony, I'm going to release you. They've been releasing fighters left and right. He is one of the most popular fighters in the history of the UFC. But maybe he will let him fight one more time. He's going to let Donald Cowboy Cerrone fight one more time after he lost a couple weeks ago in Fight Night in the second round TKO. But Dana does not, when Anderson Silva lost his last fight, the UFC said, you're done. I'm not letting you fight again. It's not for the best here. You're past your prime. You shouldn't be fighting. And it's getting to that point for me with Tony. He's not getting knocked out regularly, but he's not in fights where he even looks like he's capable of winning. And that's 3 straight fights where I don't know. And, if Conor McGregor was to lose to Dustin Poirier in July, maybe they do that fight because, Conor McGregor would be so desperate for a win that they book him with Tony. I could see that potentially. But I don't know where this goes for Tony. Maybe he gets one more fight. I'm sure he'll want to. I mean, the guy is a constant competitor, still feels he can be a champion. But I believe those days are long behind him. The lightweight division has some strong contenders. And unfortunately for him, he's just not one of them right now. So that brings us to the main event of the night. Khabib Nurmagomedov retired officially. Dana White confirmed it. And he vacated the lightweight title. So that brought about who's going to fight for the title. At first, it looked like it was going to be Dustin Poirier, he said he didn't want to fight for the title. He wants, a money fight. So he's going to be fighting Conor McGregor for the third time in July. Snooze fest. But in this title fight, we see Oliveira, who had beaten Ferguson, had won 8 in a row, one of the best submission specialists in the history of the UFC, go up against Michael Chandler, who has only got one fight in the UFC, but he's a former Bellator champion. He knocked out Dan Hooker in his first fight, made a great impression. He's kind of box office. He did a backflip off the cage. So he's got a lot of notoriety. And when it comes to selling himself, he's a good promoter. And this fight starts with Chandler just coming out of the box like just a bull in a china shop, where he got Oliveira a few times. It looked like he might be able to knock out Oliveira, tried to lock him in a guillotine, but Oliveira was on his heels for the entire first round. It was Chandler's first round, pure dominance from him. He had all the energy. He's a very aggressive fighter. And Oliveira went to his corner, but one thing about him is he doesn't freak out. He doesn't panic, and he was completely fine with what had transpired, and he was ready to go for the second round. And not 12 seconds into the second round, 12 seconds in, he uses left, goes southpaw, catches Chandler on the chin. Chandler drops. He starts to backpedal because he knows he's in trouble. And Oliveira, he gets back to his feet, but Oliveira catches him again with the right as soon as he does. Chandler is on his knees again. Oliveira catches him flush one more time. You see him daze, and the referee has to step in. Charles Oliveira is the new lightweight champion of the world. And what's shocking to me is that he wins via knockout. I mentioned he's a submission specialist. He's got 14 decisions in the UFC decided by submission. And yet he knocks out Chandler, who's known for being a knockout artist. And it just shows his versatility as a fighter. And, Chandler's, he said he still wants to be champion in the UFC. He'll have to earn it. He gets a title opportunity just after his second fight. So he should feel lucky that he even got that opportunity. But Oliveira just shows he can battle with anybody. He beats Chandler, a worthy opponent. He's beaten Gaethje. He's beaten Tony Ferguson. He's done it all. And I'm just interested to see who his next opponent is going to be. And in all likelihood, it will be the winner of Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. You already see McGregor get on Twitter congratulating Oliveira, saying, congratulations on being the 11th lightweight champion of the world. I wonder who the 12th will be. Meaning that when he beats the Diamond in July, he'll get the next opportunity, which I don't doubt. Poirier, if he wins against Conor, he should obviously get it. He should have gotten a title opportunity after his last win. But, Oliveira, McGregor obviously would be a big sell. I think Oliveira is a way better fighter. I think he would beat McGregor pretty handedly. But, in the UFC, it's about what sells. And that, I think Justin Gaethje is more worthy of an opportunity. If McGregor was to beat Poirier, I think Justin Gaethje is way more worthy of a title opportunity than McGregor. But unfortunately, in this sport, it's not about really who deserves it. It's more about who sells. And Conor McGregor would sell better than Justin Gaethje. So we'll see. But another great pay-per-view, two solid fights. And, upcoming, we got Cody Garbrandt getting back in the octagon. And then in mid-June, we got a big pay-per-view where we got Davison Figueiredo fighting Brandon Moreno for the featherweight belt. It's a rematch of their fight in December. That was one of the best fights I've ever watched. Just a physical affair where Figueiredo, it was a draw, and Figueiredo retained the belt because of that. And we'll also see Israel Adesanya get back in the cage following his first loss in the UFC to Jan Blachowicz, defend his title against Marvin Vettori. So good things. Also, Nate Diaz will get back in the octagon in that card as well. So good things happening in the UFC. A lot of interesting developments, and we'll see what happens. But good pay-per-view on the weekend, and solid action. So you can see that's Dirk, the To The Point mascot, not happy this morning. I believe Dirk is seeing birds this morning. She does not like those. So as you can hear her, she's a little rowdy this morning, but she's also excited about all the fights as well. She gets really involved when when the fighting's going on. So don't mind her. Talk briefly about the Byron Nelson, the golf tournament this weekend, where we saw them play at a course for the first time in Texas, and they chewed it up. The winner shoots 25 under, but we see, guys shooting 22 minus 21. It was a course that they could really take advantage of. We see Jordan Spieth eagle 18, the par 5 twice. And it was really a great weekend of golf. We saw them. They had to tee it early yesterday for the final Sunday, where they had weather delay. They had a delay at the end of the day. The last couple of holes, they had to return and finish them. But it looked like Sam Burns was going to be going into Saturday. He had a pretty big lead, but he didn't shoot very well. Saturday only gained a couple strokes. And we saw Keun Lee, shoot 6 under. He gets the 19 under for the day, only a stroke behind Sam Burns. And then we see an early group come out. Daniel Berger shoots 8 under on Sunday. We see Patton Kizzire shoot 9 under. Charles Schwartzer's 4 under. Scott Stallings shoots 6 under. Shot 15 under for the weekend to get tied for third. So he had some guys on his heels the entire day, but Sam Burns bogeys a couple early, only gained 2 strokes for the day, shoots 22 under. But it was Keun Lee out of Seoul, South Korea, who won the Byron Nelson. And it's his first PGA Tour win. He'll play at the PGA Championship this weekend. So it means a lot to him to first of all, you play in some events, you get to extend your tour card, and you get to go to a major this weekend that he normally would not be a part of. So pretty exciting stuff for him, for Keun Lee. And he shoots 6 under on a Sunday. It's pretty impressive. He comes into the day stroke back, but he goes 2, 3, and 4, birdie, and just found his game. It was crappy conditions. He had to come. It was a weather delay for 16, 17, 18. He bogeyed 16, so Sam Burns he was still in it, but he birdied 17 and he birdies 18 to finish out his round. And just impressive day for Keun Lee. Some really impressive golf, like I said, from guys like Patton Kizzire, Daniel Berger, Scott Stallings, who had a great weekend, 15 under for the weekend. But as we head into the PGA Championship, we saw Jordan Spieth. He finished in the top 10 again, so another top 10 showing. Sam Burns, who finished second here, he's now top 10 in the FedEx Cup rankings this year. He's got a win in the Valspar a couple weeks ago. It was his first PGA Tour win. Now 2 runner-up finishes this year. So he's been one of the more consistent players on tour. Interesting to see what he can do at a major tournament. But going in, you obviously got your favorites, but I also think Jordan Spieth has to be right up there. And he shoots 18 under, so fell off the pack a little bit, didn't play great on Sunday. But this was his first tournament since the Masters, and for him to hit 2 eagles, look confident, hitting his greens, and I think he's got to be at least pretty happy about his outcome. DeChambeau didn't shoot great this last week. We've seen Dustin Johnson be really inconsistent, didn't play at this tournament. Justin Thomas didn't play, but he's been fair so far. So I think it's a wide open field. I think Rory McIlroy will go into the tournament being a Kiowa, the clear favorite. But don't be surprised to see some of these smaller names come into focus here and really start to make an impact, because it wouldn't surprise me to see a name outside the board like a Daniel Berger or a Sam Burns, or some of these guys that are always at the smaller tournaments being at the top leaderboard, potentially make some noise at the event this week in Kiowa beginning Thursday, and that's going to be around the clock coverage. We'll see the PGA Championship, and a beautiful venue, and the weather is supposed to be good for this weekend, so it should be clear for the players, and we'll see who can take advantage of the course that Rory McIlroy won in 2012, winning by a record 8 strokes. I was going to talk about baseball today, but I went through hockey. It was just a big deep dive. So I thought I'd go into the NBA and just give an update where we're at. The regular season's over, ended yesterday. And I think the NBA couldn't have been happier, because you head into the last day and only 1 seed was guaranteed yesterday. The Philadelphia 76ers had locked up first in the Eastern Conference. Other than that, everything else was still up for grabs. Brooklyn Nets is playing Chicago in the afternoon. They beat them. They lock up. the second seed in the East. The Milwaukee Bucks, that guaranteed them third with Brooklyn winning, so they're third. Then you had the New York Knicks. They play the Celtics. The Knicks pick up a huge victory. The Knicks are a huge story this year. I mean, they're one of the biggest franchises in the NBA, but for all the negative reasons, where you got James Dolan and all the mistakes they've made when it comes to drafting and just hiring coaches, and just anything that the Knicks do seems to turn to ashes. But they beat the Celtics. They've clinched their first playoff berth since 2013, and they actually lock up the 4th seed in the East, and they will have home court advantage in the first round, where there will be fans at Madison Square Garden. It's a huge deal. Julius Randle leading that team, Derrick Rose, great deadline acquisition for Tom Thibodeau. And I think them getting 4th, I think it'll guarantee that Tom Thibodeau will be the 2021 NBA Coach of the Year. With the Knicks winning, Atlanta played Houston last night, meaningless game. It locked them 5th. So the Knicks will play the Atlanta Hawks in the first round. The Milwaukee Bucks will then in turn play the Miami Heat in the first. These two teams met last year in the second round, where Miami kind of built a wall around Giannis. He couldn't get through it. So Milwaukee, who has struggled in the playoffs, will get a chance at redemption. And I think it's a big series for the Bucks. They lose to Miami in the first round, I think you'd see Mike Budenholzer lose his job. I mean, he's a great coach, really good. He's got great regular season statistics with the Atlanta Hawks when he was there, and Milwaukee. But you got to have some playoff performances. You got to be successful. And losing to Miami in the first round as a 3 seed, I think he could be out of a job. So those are the only 2 playoff matches we know, because this year we have the play-in tournament. And basically, I've explained it, but I'll do it again. What happens is the 7th and 8th seeds are going to play each other tomorrow night. So that's going to be Boston versus Washington. The winner of that game will be the number 7 seed, and they'll play the Brooklyn Nets. So they'll play the Brooklyn Nets in the first round. The loser of that game will play the winner of the 9-10 seeds are playing tomorrow night as well. The winner of that game will play the loser of 7-8, and the winner of that game will be the 8th seed in the East, and they will play the Philadelphia 76ers. So it's complicated, but basically what it is, it's more games, more revenue, more games on ESPN, TNT. And, Celtics, Wizards, Charlotte, Indiana in the 9-10 game, it's a hard one to market. But out west, there is a matchup that I'm sure the NBA is stoked about and will kill in ratings. Out west, the Jazz had to beat the Sacramento Kings to clinch number 1 in the West. They did that. So they're the number 1 seed. The Suns beat the Spurs on a last-second shot. They're the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. We saw Denver lose to Portland. They got crushed. But the Clippers, they lost also. They lose to Oklahoma City. So that Denver could have lost that 3 seed if the Clippers won, but they don't. Denver's the number 3 seed. The Clippers number 4 seed. So Clippers, in turn, will play the Dallas Mavericks. They met in the first round of the playoffs last year. So a rematch, we'll see Luka Doncic go up against Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and co. We'll see the Denver Nuggets host the Portland Trailblazers. And Portland had to win last night to avoid the play-in tournament, which they did. And Portland's going to be obviously a road team here against Denver. But I like their chances. No Jamal Murray. Jokic will likely be the MVP. But you got Dame Lillard, you got CJ McCollum, Nurkic is healthy, Carmelo Anthony, Enes Kanter. I think Portland's got a good chance of an upset there. So that could be interesting. And you got Clippers, Mavericks. Clippers are going to have a lot of pressure now that the playoffs have started to do something. I think Dallas is kind of playing with house money, where they'll see what they can do in this matchup. So that leads us to the play-in tournament in the West. We'll see the Los Angeles Lakers play the Golden State Warriors in the 7 versus 8 game. And the NBA could not have asked for a better game when the season started. So we got 72 games. What play-in game do we want? Lakers, Warriors. You're going to have LeBron James, Anthony Davis against Steph Curry, who's just come off winning his 2nd scoring title. And he got 47 points yesterday. Can he somehow pull off a huge upset against the Lakers where he just scores 60 points, goes off basically by himself, and does the impossible? I think this game is going to do crazy ratings in the States, and I'm sure they're pumped that they get Lakers, Warriors. That'll be for 7-8. Then 9th, 10th, it'll be Memphis, San Antonio. Again, not the sexiest matchup. Loser of Lakers, Warriors will play winner Memphis, San Antonio for the 8th seed. So Jazz, Lakers, 76ers, Brooklyn are still waiting to see who they're going to play. But the play-in tournament starts tomorrow. The East games are tomorrow night, the West Wednesday, and then the other two matchups, I believe, will be Thursday and Friday, with the playoffs starting Saturday in the NBA. So NHL playoffs are in full throttle. You're going to have the NBA playoffs starting at the PGA Championship next weekend. We got the Roland Garros, the French Open, is starting in about 2 weeks. We also got Major League Baseball's in full swing. The Toronto Blue Jays are within a game and a half of the Boston Red Sox. They're playing real well. We see the San Diego Padres without Tatis Jr., without Eric Hosmer, without Will Myers. They're within a half game of San Francisco with the Dodgers right on their heels. So lots happening in the world of sports. We're going to cover it all here. It's been a great weekend of sports. I've enjoyed all of it. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast today. We'll be talking about the games, still doing the shows with Seamus, of course. Going to be doing an NBA playoff preview show later this week. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. But for everybody here to the point, we appreciate the support, appreciate the listen. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.